The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned into the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Rob Waltko and Joe Youngblood. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Hey fans, welcome to the Open Room. Rob and Joe here again for another week where we're going to preview some things, recap some others, and we got a special guest coming on at the end. Seth Ecker, newly anointed head coach at Alvernia University. It's a Division III school outside Reading, Pennsylvania. They haven't started competing yet, and we're going to have him on, and we're going to talk about what it's like to start a new program, about his personal life, what led him to this job, and everything in between. Rob, let's talk about the week that was and what's coming up. What do you got for us to start off? Let's get going. Let's jump right in.
So this goes against the PA Power moniker, but we have to talk about it. The Suriano Fix match from Sunday. Suriano versus Fix. It was in Suriano's hometown over in the rack. Huge match, tons of hype, and heck, it might have taken 45 minutes. It was ridiculous with the challenges, the coaches arguing, the refs refusing to make a call. And Fix eventually won 3-2 via hands to the face, which in my opinion wasn't a bad call. I hate the rule, but it was made, the rule was enforced the correct way in that match. But man, with all those challenges, the delays, what do you think of that, Joe? In my opinion, I thought the refs needed to grow a pair and really tell the Oklahoma State coaches to sit down, dock them a team point, whatever it was, but they were letting those guys just run them over.
So let's think back first to the who's number one match between these two. And what they wrestled for? 40-some minutes? And in that match, there was tons of scrambling and, action and, takedown at the end in overtime. I mean, they wrestled forever. This match was arguably just as long, but they spent, of the time they wrestled, 9 minutes. They probably spent 40 of it, 35 to 40 of it in challenges and in stoppage time, and totally took the rhythm out of that match. One thing that was disappointing for me, Rob, was I can't recall like a true takedown attempt from either guy. And I know we talked a little bit before we went on about this, but those high level matches, those are the matches where you see these guys rise to the challenge and make it get to the legs and make something happen. And Fix, we've seen, can scramble at the best of them. Suriano can roll and can scrap, and we never even got to see that. We got to see 2 escapes and a hands to the face call. I'm just left wanting more out of it. The hype machine, hyped it up. Suriano winning Friday night and saying 2 more days is going to go down here at the rack, and it went down. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I was pumped to watch it. I watched it in the grocery store as I was getting groceries on Sunday. And funny, I'm gonna give a shout out to one of the dads in my program, Brad Bechtel. He sees me and he's like, "What are you doing?" As I'm watching Suriano and Fix, and there he goes. He just we're sitting there and at the deli counter at the local Giant and watching the match, and people probably thought we were strange, but there we are, watching. And after a while, it just got too much. Like after the challenge after challenge. So you need to say I'm left wanting more. It's going to be interesting to see if they match up at nationals, if and when it possibly might happen, and see if there's a different result then. And I don't mean different result like Suriano winning. I just mean different result in like a better match. It just wasn't a good match.
Yeah, it was disappointing that neither guy really let it fly, excuse me. I don't know. I've never been in a high-profile match like that. I've never been as good as those guys, but you figured one of them would take a chance, and maybe they just felt each other out and they were just waiting for a mistake. But 2 guys that good, you got to go out there and take it, is what I've always thought. Fix isn't going to trip over his feet, neither Suriano. Flip side of that coin, Friday night, you had a 1 versus 2 match with Jason Nolf and Ryan Deacon, and that was an absolute butt whooping. Nolf ended up beating him 19-7, was an absolute command, 8 takedowns, got ridden in the third, but ended up scoring 3 points from bottom without getting an escape. Did that shock you, Joe? I didn't know what to expect beforehand. It wouldn't have shocked me if it was 6-3 or something of that nature, but I couldn't believe how easily he beat up on Deacon.
doesn't shock me. Nolf had a hiccup or two at the scuffle. Maybe didn't look a little bit human. Some guys wrestled him tough early on, but it's January. And it just seems like these Penn State guys, Nolf in particular, Nickel, Chenzo, they kind of turn that corner and turn it up. I don't know what it is or how they train or what leads them to that, but it's as if they hit this juncture of season, this stretch, and they turn that corner and they take it to another level. And Nolf was on his game on Friday, and I don't know if it was the point that he got to be the villain or the heel of the away crowd there out at Northwestern, but he just had too much smoke for Deacon, and he had him on his heels the entire time. And he's just the Nolf that we're used to seeing. And, like I said, there was just that little bit of time where he was just maybe a little bit off his game, more so than we're used to seeing. Yeah,
that was impressive. I think Nolf just wants to separate himself. He's got a big one this week, and we'll talk about it later in the episode, but he's going to see Ryan Berger. So I think I said Deacon was number 2. I believe he's at 3, and Berger's number 2. So we'll see if he can put that type of performance on again against him. Staying on Penn State, obviously Vincenzo was out. Cale came out, said he doesn't think it's anything serious. So, I don't want to say I believe him because that could be Cale talk. But, fingers crossed Vincenzo's okay. What about them losing, though, at 41 and 49? You had Tristan Moran and Cole Martin ranked 13 and 9, respectively, beat Nick Lee and Brady Burgee, who are 6 and 10 in an overtime match and a 1-point match. Like we said about Bono, I mean, he has his guys wrestling hard, but admittedly, I wouldn't have taken those two to lose in that dual meet, especially at home. Joe, did that surprise you at all?
A little bit. Truth be told, just because I think those guys are still. Well, I should say. Let me back up. Burge, yes, I think he's still kind of getting into that role of the starter, and you're wrestling these big duels and the home crowd. I think it kind of maybe engulfed him a little bit, and he seemingly wrestled a little bit tight in all reality. But I really think that he's got to settle in, more or less. Like he's got to get used to it. That's going to be common for him as his career goes on. Like those are going to be the kind of things that he wrestles in front of on a regular basis. He's got to be ready for anything and everything that comes his way as he's on the mat there. With the Penn State Nittany Lions. I mean, it's part of it comes with the territory. And if it's one of those things that if it's a regular occurrence in these bigger matches and he doesn't develop, like there's going to be someone knocking on the door behind him looking to take that spot.
No, I agree with you. I think he showed a little bit better offense than we'd seen from him in the past, but somewhat of like a brain fart. I think he gave him a couple of takedowns late in periods, but to your point, if he's not ready to go long term, they will find someone that is able to go. Skipping ahead a little bit, how about Chance Marsteller over Cam Coy 4-3 in the first round of the Virginia duels? So Coy had a tough weekend. He went 0-3, lost to Mekhi Lewis and Shields from Arizona State. But Lock Haven, they had a very tough tournament. They didn't have Hazel and they didn't have Haynes. They ended up going 1-2. Excuse me. They lost to Arizona State. They lost to Virginia, and they beat Kent State. For 7th place. But not a great tournament for them from what the expectations are. And missing 2 studs certainly hurts. But what did you think of that Coy result and just Lock Haven in general?
All right, so truth be told, I had, I guess, high expectations for Coy this year. Again, coming off the last season, and he started out kind of rocky, kind of rough. What I take away from his performance this weekend is possibly could he turn that corner. What he did this weekend was he kept points off the board. He didn't give up a lot, but his offense is maybe not there yet, and he's getting there. I feel like it's a process with him, and when you're wrestling 3 of the top, say 10 guys in the country in one weekend, you're getting that tough competition that's going to make you better. I think down the stretch he's going to be fine in that ACC tournament, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses coming off this weekend. I think that the match with Marsteller, he he was able to just slow down Marsteller's offense and enough that, kept him in the match, but never really challenged for that lead. If that makes sense. I never felt it was a match that Chance was going to lose.
I'll tell you who impressed me at the Virginia duels, though, is Tom Slay from Virginia Tech. Obviously, he's a guy I've watched for years. He wrestled at Bucknell originally, ended up transferring. But talk about new year, new me. That should be Tom Slay's nickname. To start the year, he was not wrestling great. He struggled with Coling and Chaconis. Went to Vegas, did not wrestle well, got beat up by Balsack, got beat up by Jay Aiello, and then lost a tough one to Brookie in the dual meet. But since the new year, was third in the Southern Scuffle. He ended up beating Jacob Seeley, a couple-time national qualifier, Loizo. He beat Dakota Gear for third place. And then he beat Aiello, the Virginia duel. So I think he's definitely trending upwards. Virginia Tech as a team, they seemed like they were a little bit flat to start the year. And I don't know. A lot of that could be training phases, right? Where these guys aren't peaking for the early season stuff. They're just training through it. But I was really impressed with Tom Slay's results. I think he jumps to number 9 in the rankings. He's right behind Aiello. They'll obviously wrestle again throughout the year, but you're definitely impressed with him. Do you think he's a guy that could get on the podium, Joe? Because honestly, coming into the year, I thought so. I watched him in Vegas and I was like, I don't think he has it, but he's definitely moving in the right direction. How do you foresee his season going?
You took my terms. He's trending upwards, and I totally agree. Not to jump on and piggyback everything you say, but the facts are there. He started out rocky and didn't give you much hope based upon where the expectations were early on. And now he's starting to gain some steam. And I like how you talked about the training aspect of it and what they're trained for. One of the things that we've all come to learn, if you haven't, maybe take notice now, is the job that Virginia Tech has been doing with their program, even with the turnover in coaches. The staff there now is getting them ready, and they're not the. I wouldn't say they're not the Virginia Tech of old, because Virginia Tech's not too far removed from a trophy at NCAA's, but they're going to be knocking on the door in the top 10 again, come March. And I think Slay's going to be a big part of that. And a guy like Slay's might be the difference between, say, 5th and 7th for them, or 5th and 8th as a team, just in the points that he's going to be able to score. And it becomes a crapshoot past the first 4 or 5 teams, that it could be anyone. And you get a team that gets hot and gets a guy or two that out wrestles their seed. There you are, looking inside, looking at, on the outside looking in for, top 5 in the nation. Like I said, Slay's a huge part of that plan, I think, for that Virginia Tech hockey team.
So when you talk about Virginia Tech wrestling, and they have plenty of PA guys on the roster, so I don't feel bad talking about them not being a PA school, but they've been in the top 10 6 straight times. I mean, they're a top 10 program. When you think about like tradition or teams that are knocking at the door, they're right there, and they have to be respected like anyone else. I mean, you got I'd say the big 3 or 4. Penn State is really up there. Then you got Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Iowa in that second tier. And the tier after that, you have your Michigans, but I would put Virginia Tech in there with NC State, Michigan, Cornell, Lehigh, those types of programs, Missouri. But I mean, from how bad these guys were 15 years ago, it's just remarkable what they've done here. Yeah, and they're doing it even though they've had that change in coaching. They're still getting guys to come in, and they're developing talent, and they're gonna put guys on the podium. Like it didn't stop because Dresser and company left. It's continuing because Roby and company are there. Yeah, absolutely. Some quick duel results. Clarion beat Bloomsburg 22-15. Greg Bolsack returned. He won 3-0. That's good news for Clarion. They've been really hindered by injuries and guys out, so it's good to see them getting healthy. Drexel over Penn. What is that? The Cheesesteak Bowl. Cheesesteak Trophy. Cheesesteak Trophy. 4 in a row for the Dragons. Who would have thought that 10 years ago? That Drexel will be beating Penn 4 years in a row. 16-15. Unfortunate news there is Ty Smith and Loizo are out for Drexel. So have you heard anything on their status? There's nothing I've heard
about their status as far as why they were out, but a testament to the depth at Drexel that they've established, that you can miss those two starters and still come away with a dual meet against a rival. And we talked about it. We kind of almost beat it to death in the preseason when we talked about wrestling in Philadelphia. And yeah, maybe I'm partial to it because it's my backyard. But the reality is, those two teams, not only are they rivals, not only they share a regional training center. So those guys see a lot of each other throughout the year.
They walk to each other's campuses, right?
Yeah. They can throw rocks at each other from campus to campus, essentially. So they're that close. And I think it's just great. It's great for seeing. And they moved the match time up to 1:00 to not interfere with the Eagles game on Sunday, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, just everything about it, the cheesesteak trophy, like it just adds to the rivalry and just everything else like that the training center, everything makes it just such a unique rivalry now.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of respect for each other, but it's cool to see. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little competition. Some other results. Zach Hartman from Bucknell, he's ranked number 10. He went out and stuck Humphrey from Lehigh, who was ranked 20. It was a really good match. It was 0-0 going into the third, but it was about as crazy of a 0-0 as there was. A lot of stalemates as guys were getting ready to score, some pretty good scrambles, but Hartman's looking like the real deal.
So basically, that's the match that should have been Suriano and Fix, where there was a lot of stalemates and things like that, and that should have been how that Suriano Fix match went. Not to rehatch that, but it was. Yeah,
I mean, like I said, you're right. I mean, it can be 1-1, but have some action in it, right? And that's what this match looked like. Sticking with the IWA, Lehigh over Cornell. Yeah, when you look at the box score, it's not that surprising, but with how hurt Lehigh's been, and we should mention that Scotty Parker tweeted out today that he's effectively retired or done with his competitive career. He has a shoulder surgery coming up, so great career for him. But that's just kind of been Lehigh's luck this year with injuries. But yeah, I guess the turning point was Humphreys scored an injury default over Freddie Stroker. But did anything about that match jump off the table to you, or what were your thoughts on Lehigh and Cornell?
I'm not going to say this is the Lehigh we expected to see because they're no way, shape, or form at full strength, but they're showing signs of life. You look at their schedule, and you look at the team that we thought they were going to have before injuries, and this team was gonna be tested, and they have a tremendous schedule. That staff did a great job getting as many hammers on the schedule as possible that you could, but then the injury bug hit, and they lose all these guys, and it doesn't work out. I'm not saying by any sense of imagination they're turning the corner and they're going to be back because they're not healthy. You're losing a guy for Parker for the season. A guy arguably that was in preseason we talked about in a dark horse for a national championship, depending on what happens and how, or at least a national finalist. And now you're going to not having that in your lineup. That's a big hole to fill. And there's other holes to fill, but I feel like that's kind of the Lehigh team, or the way we expected to see Lehigh kind of win matches this year. That was a winnable match on paper in the preseason, and it was one that they were able to win. Like you said, the injury default did help, but there's a lot of matches this year they weren't even in, and they were in that match regardless of injury default or not. Yeah, no.
Good job by Santoro and his staff to keep fighting hard. How about Pitt's weekend? They went up to the Dakotas. They thumped on North Dakota State 22-11, and then they beat up South Dakota State 34-0 Sunday. Shutout up in Frost Arena. The big match there was Lee beat Polmeyer 6-2. Pitt looks really good. I mean, I think Gavin's kind of having the Bono effect a little bit. Maybe we'll call it the Gavin effect, but his guys wrestle really, really hard, and they're winning tight matches. And I think at 74, Harvey gave the first takedown versus South Dakota State, but ended up getting a major. They're tough, man, and they're doing an awesome job. Did you expect them to be this good?
No, not at all. But they just continue to impress. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just didn't expect it. I felt that they were young in places and they had some holes and some unknowns. Mickey Philippi has turned out to be everything and more than could have been expected in that lineup. And it's like all hands on deck. They, like you said, destroyed South Dakota State. We didn't, Gross did not wrestle, but that's a whole other story. They remain undefeated. Like you said, the Gavin effect. He's getting the most out of this team right now. And it's great because not only are they getting the most out of them, they wrestle confident. They go out and they battle, they scrap, whatever you want to call it. But as we look down the road, that's where, we'll see what they're really made of. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of it in particular down the stretch, but just in order, this is who they have coming up on their schedule. Okie State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, NC State, and UVA, who I know I kind of been down on, after this past weekend at the Virginia Duels, like kind of showing some life, and, maybe they're going to be wrestling up to their potential now. So those are also still matches remain on their schedule. So you look at that, and Pitt's, we'll see what they're made of in the next 4 weeks for sure. Yeah,
they have obviously the Cowboys coming to town. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up, but yeah, we'll see what they're made of, and I'm sure they're not backing down from a challenge. Last part of our recap, we'll look at the Hawkeyes, the Pennsylvania Hawkeyes out there. Spencer Lee, obviously with a workman-like 4-0 win versus Russell, which I didn't think was all that bad. I know he smoked him last year, but he was in control. He went 7 minutes. He looked okay.
He smoked him at Midlands, mind you, too.
Yeah, he tagged him. Yeah. DeSanto 6-1 over Lizak. We'll talk about that one. Max Murin went out, lost a tough one to McKee. He just can't score versus these top guys, it seems like. He's going to have to figure that out. But Caleb Young with maybe the throw of the year. Holy smokes. It's 1-to-1. He's getting body locked to his back. He catches himself on one hand and throws a headgear or a headlock from heck. What did you think of the Hawkeyes? I mean, tell me first and foremost, what did you think of DeSanto? What did you think of Young? Personally, I thought DeSanto looked great in the match, all three positions, but acted like a bit of a goofball afterwards. What were your impressions on that?
So let's start first with the match. And if we think back to, I believe it was the summer, maybe this fall, I don't have the exact thing, I didn't dig the tweet up, where Lizak challenged DeSanto, dared him essentially, maybe even double dog dared him to take bottom when they wrestled this year.
I'm hearing that was a parody, though.
He did.
That wasn't a real Twitter account. I'm not sure.
Oh, so maybe I'm mistaken on that, but regardless, that made news that came across my way. So if that was real or not, DeSanto no problem taking bottom, very workmanlike, like you said, 6-1 win, impressive for me, very impressive, because I thought Lizak went on top and would be able to use his top game, but I think I'm wavering from the Lizak camp, because at 33, he's not having that success on top that he did at 25, in my opinion.
I think Lizak, probably his best weight would be 129. When he doesn't to make weight anymore on a day 2 or day 3, he looks lights out, but he can't horse these guys at 133 the same way. He just doesn't have the length, doesn't have the strength.
It's a perfect assessment of it. My issue, and I wouldn't call it an issue, the thing about DeSanto, yeah, he's an emotional kid, and there's nothing wrong with that, but he doesn't need to act that way like he did after the match. He's letting his emotions get the best of him. Maybe he relishes that role, and he's okay with that. But it's something that, I don't know, as a coach, I would struggle with my wrestlers doing it, or a wrestler doing that. If we go back and we talk about other team points this weekend, the other big one was Ashnault when he beats Gefeller, and he gives the Cowboy Guns jersey style to the Oklahoma State bench. He gets hit a team point. Gefeller pushes him. He gets knocked a team point. It's nothing wrong with showing emotion and celebrating, but when you cross that line, and it's a fine line, and we can use the word discretion. And if I'm gonna quote Jeff Upson with discretion, if anyone read his article this week about the officials using discretion, it's one of those things where what is over the line, and you look at the letter of the law, and there was taunting. There's your point. There's physical contact. There's your point. So there are these things that happen. I'm just not a fan of seeing it in these matches. And I don't know, maybe from like DeSanto, like I don't know, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong. Shouldn't he at this point act like he's been there before?
So kind of a weird. I have a weird take on it. I think I like seeing it as a fan. It like makes me laugh. Something to talk about. I like the drama. Maybe I'm a drama queen. But as a coach, you're right. It would drive me nuts. I probably wouldn't want to coach a guy that's doing that. I coach youth wrestling, and when kids are pounding on the mat or they're doing the Superman after a pin, that drives me nuts. But as a fan, to me, it's kind of funny. I don't want to say it's charming, but it gives you some excitement. Frankly, I don't think DeSanto cares about being disliked. It probably doesn't bother him at all. But yeah, he's definitely not gaining any fans with those actions. What do you think of Caleb Young's throw?
Phenomenal. And here's a match where it was destined for overtime.
Unbelievable.
Good match, decent action, and at the end, Blyce hits that. He gets low, he baits him into stepping in. He hits that what you thought was going to be a blast double. He comes up in the body lock, and he looks like he's got Young dead to rights. And like you said, Young's back is facing the mat, and he's getting driven to the mat, and he finds the torque in his hips off of one foot to throw that headlock out of left field. And I think the greatest part of that whole thing for me was watching the crowd, because they got on their feet. They're thinking, oh, here it comes. And it made me think immediately back to the NCAA finals last year when Miles Martin had Bo up in that double, and he's putting him down to his hip, to his butt. And those Ohio State fans, and there was those three guys in particular that were like Matt side, and they're going nuts. And Bo hits the elevator, and then same thing, Young hits that headlock, and it was like the whole arena was deflated. And it's moves like that can bring you to your feet and take you to the highest of highs and immediately put you to lowest of lows. Just to see their expressions as that time ran out and Young had him in that headlock on the mat was pretty cool. And it's coming from a guy that doesn't root willingly for the Hawkeyes. I do pull for the PA guys, but the fact of the matter is, I've been conditioned for a better part of my life to not like the Iowa Hawkeye wrestling team. So I'm slowly coming around, and it's these PA guys that are making it way more tolerable.
Sticking with Iowa, they have a big match with Rutgers this weekend. We're going to see Suriano DeSanto. I mean, maybe the two biggest topics from last week are going to wrestle this week. That's a huge match. I mean, personally, I think Suriano is going to be way too much for him. I think we're looking at a 4-1, 6-2 type match. I don't think DeSanto's pace is going to bother Suriano. I could be wrong, but how do you see that? Do you think Suriano is going to be bothered with him at all, or he's just going to be too technical, too strong, too stingy?
Suriano's horsepower is going to be too much for him. And, wrestling from a wrestling perspective, DeSanto, his pace, his ability to go forever are feathers in his cap, but he doesn't have the sheer horsepower to go with it. He's more, might be a more technical wrestler than Suriano, but Suriano's just so strong, and he's still, again, stingy is a great word. He's just so tough to score on that I don't see a situation in which he's able to score on him in any position. Again, I'm wrong like all the time, and I'll totally have no problem eating crow on this one. I just can't fathom a situation or a match where that happens. Suriano is gonna, I think, be able to move him around, and like you said, 6'2", 4'1", 5'1". That's on the box. Looking at it on paper, that's a close match. But I think watching it, if it's that score, it's never going to be in question who was the dominant wrestler, because I feel that Suriano is going to be able to just control the pace, control the action. As much as DeSanto will want to push the pace, Suriano's strong enough. He's gonna force DeSanto to wrestle his match. And like I said, I picked against DeSanto in Lizak, and I was wrong. I'll own it all day. And I think that was the tipping point for me, showing me that Lizak can't run with the 33 pounders, excuse me. But you're comparing two separate things here. Like Lizak in no way, or I should say Suriano in no way, shape, or form is a Lizak, or Lizak's not on his level anyway. And again, we talk about hierarchies at times. Like it's Suriano, and then at least in that that Big Ten, Suriano and everyone's kind of blow him after that. So I just think that it's gonna end poorly for DeSanto in that match.
I'll say this, and I'll give DeSanto a really big compliment. This match isn't going to be boring. He's going to go after it, and he's going to wrestle hard, and that's kind of why I have a little bit of a soft spot for him, even with some of his antics that I don't necessarily agree with. The kid's a gamer, and he wrestles his butt off, and he's done some pretty dirty stuff that I'm not a fan of. But for the most part, he gets after it, which I really like. Maybe the duel of the week for Pennsylvania teams is Pitt. Got the Oklahoma State Cowboys coming to town. There's some big ones here. You got 133. You got number 2, Daton Fix versus Mickey Philippi, who's number 4. You got Jacoby Smith, who's number 10, former All-American, versus Nino Bonacorsi, who's number 14. 97, I think, is a big one. Dakota Gears only ranked 13th. Kellen Stout isn't ranked, but Stout's won his last 6. He's starting to kind of figure it out. And a lot of those matches, I think I said this before, he lost like a dozen matches last year by 1 or 2 points, and he's starting to win those this year. Again, the Gavin effect, right? I mean, he's turning these guys that are losing 3-2 to winning 4-2. And then at heavyweight, you got Derek White, who's ranked number 2, versus Demetrius Thomas, who's ranked number 10, but he's coming on for Pitt. What matches really jump off the table for you? For me, it's 184, even though it's maybe not the highest ranked, but I want to see how Bonacorsi does in these bigger tests. I'll go on a limb. I've been wrong about him before, but I think he's going to go out there and beat Jacoby Smith. I think his length's going to be too much. He's going to get to Smith's legs. He's got to avoid some of those big moves. But outside of that, what matches do you like, Joe?
I like the heavyweight match. Derek White put everyone on notice at the scuffle when he beat Anthony Cassar from Penn State. But Demetrius Thomas, I don't know, he's fun to watch. Like he goes out and he battles and he wins. He wins matches, and I think it's gonna be closer than people think, because Derek White's not gonna sneak up on anybody anymore. Not that he was, but it just seems like he was like I don't know. No one was talking about him. Now his name's in people's mouths, and he's not. People are going to be ready for him. I think that the Pitt staff, Keith Gavin and company, will be ready for it. Philippine Fix, I hope it's better than, not going back to it, but I hope it's better than the match this past weekend. Not as high profile, but Philippi, again, he's been, wrestling really well as of late. So we'll see how that goes. There's a lot of matches. I'm excited to see this match. However, there's not a lot that are going to get me, really excited for. We go back to it. Stout and Bonacorsi probably is the premier match. They just don't match up well with each other. And Oklahoma State's going to have a little bit. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say? Sorry. Yes. But yeah. The Bonacorsi and Smith match. Stout and Gear. Gear's going to have too much for him, as far as I'm concerned, right now. But the Bonacorsi match is one that I'm definitely looking forward to. The premier match, and probably after that, then the heavyweights, just because seeing where Demetrius Thomas is he going to be a true threat to All-American? I think this would be a good measuring stick for him. As far at this point in the season, we're in mid-January, and this is when the rubber needs to meet the road, or where it's going to meet the road for Pitt. And they're really going to see where they're at. Some of their guys when they're tested by the Cowboys.
Yeah, and you look at Pitt, they realistically, and they'd probably say we have more than this, which is why they're doing well, because they're not listening to guys like us. But they have 4 guys right now that I think have realistic shots to All-American at 33, 57, 84, and heavyweight. I mean, who would have said that coming into the year? So they've done, again, just can't stress enough how good of a job they're doing. And what a good product they're putting out there. And they have some good recruits coming in this year, but I have a feeling they're going to wrangle some really top notch kids in the next few years. Last thing we'll talk about before we get on the phone with Seth, Nebraska PSU duel. There's a few matches here. You got 41. You got 2 All-Americans with Chad Redd and Nick Lee going at it. 57, 1 versus 2, Nolf and Berger. 65, if Chenzo wrestles, I get a feeling that he might not be wrestling, but he'd wrestle Isaiah White. Labriola took a loss last week to Lujan, get a chance at Mark Hall. And then, again, I must be on a 184 kick because that was my weight class, about 50, 60 pounds ago. But 84, you have Venz and Rashid. That's going to be just a war. I mean, that could be 15-14. Both those guys can score, pin, throw you on your back, cradle you, take you down, do it again. What match are you looking forward to in this duel?
Good question. I'm going to disagree and not say the 184-pound match because I don't want to agree with you. I don't know. I'm going to say Nolf and Berger because this will be another opportunity for Nolf to separate himself. I guess I'm saying it in a manner that I don't expect it to. I shouldn't say I don't expect it to be a good match. That I guess that would be disrespectful in a way. But I think Nolf will be extra pumped for this because he's a gamer. He rises to the occasion, and he's gonna have he's at his best when his best is needed. And I think that he's gonna want to again show everyone how dominant he is and what he's made of. And Berger's gonna be on the other end of that. I would say after that the Nick Lee Chad Redd match I'm looking forward to. But I think. At the end of the day, Nick Lee's going to have it's going to be a little bit too much for him, and it's 65. It's up in the air. 65 would be there if I knew for a fact Chenzo was wrestling, but we don't. And Isaiah White's up and down, but he's been more up as of late, so that is definitely promising for him. But I still want to see whether or not Chenzo's wrestling, and my opinion of what match I'm most looking forward to could change as a result.
Let's assume Chenzo wrestles between 41, 57, 65, 74, 84. It's half the dual meets. That's 5 right there. Do you think Penn State sweeps all those? I don't want to call them toss-up, but I call them marquee. Like I would call Hall and Labriola. That's not a toss-up by any means. Nolf's not a toss-up with anyone. But I'd say 41, 84, you could call toss-ups, even though Red hasn't looked good. And then White, I mean, he's historically given Chenzo problems. I still think Penn State wins all those matches. That's how good they are.
I would agree with that.
Actually, I'll take Venz over Rashid, but every other one they'll win.
Rashid is, again, he's been himself and scoring bonus points this year. But I like Venz. He's been he's been impressive this year as well, and he's that guy we talked about. He's so unassuming. You look at him and the eye test doesn't pass it whatsoever, but gets on the mat and he just kind of mauls guys. And I think he's going to give Rashid all he wants and more. Other previews: NC State and Drexel. Doesn't look good for Drexel. There would be some okay matches, but if they're still nicked up a little bit, it's NC State's going to be a little bit too much for them. I know we talked a little bit about Dakota Greer going to wrestle Noah Adams in that West Virginia duel. I don't know. I haven't been impressed with Noah Adams this year, so I think Gear is going to be getting the better of that match. Yeah,
the one I want to see at NC State is Jarrell versus from Drexel, obviously, versus Buller. There's 2 top 20 guys. Yeah, Gear and Adams. Adams has been close with a lot of guys. I think Gear will be too much for him, but Gear hasn't seemingly gotten many easy matches at 97. He's wrestled a lot of top guys, at least like top 15, 20-ish type guys, but he's wrestling well and certainly looks up to the test.
One last one I'll throw at you, that Rutgers match. I mean, Suriano and DeSanto's getting all the publicity, but what about Van Brill and Young?
Obviously, Van Brill is a little bit more accomplished. Round to 12 last year, but Young's just on fire. I think he's gonna win that match easily.
You think easily? I got it as like a 1 or 2 point match that he wins because, again, like you say, he's coming in brimming with confidence. And
I think like 7-4, 7-3-ish, but he'll get 2.5 minutes riding time.
It's a bold statement. We'll see. We'll have to come back to that one next week. So we're going to change gears. We're going to get Seth on the phone with us. And again, Seth Ecker, for those that don't know, accomplished PA wrestler, who's a 2-time national champ. We're going to ask him about all that stuff coming up. And he is the head coach at Alvernia University. So we're going to give him an opportunity to talk about what he's doing and what he's done and what led him to this. So it's going to be. I'm looking forward to this one with him. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, everyone says he's a pretty fiery guy. He really likes the sport, and he's got a pretty cool story. So I'm looking forward to talking to him.
Seth, welcome to the open room with Rob and Joe. Thanks for taking some time out of your night to talk shop with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for all you guys do for the sport of wrestling.
Hey, so jumping right in, Seth. First question for our listeners: how did you get started in the sport? When did you start wrestling?
I started wrestling when I was 5. I'd like to say it was, a glorious time, and I was loving the sport since then. But, I'll be honest with you, I started leaving the wrestling room crying every day looking for my mom. But I stuck with it and, pushed through it for those first couple of years and, started to get a little better, I think, like most young wrestlers. And really, I would say the catalyst for me of transitioning from, a hobby into, something I wanted to do and found a lot of passion in is when I got involved with Steel Mat Club out in Sinking Springs, where, I would drive an hour to go wrestle with these guys. And, being around a new group of people really changed my life for the better, when I was in about middle school. I grew up, born and raised in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, pretty close to where Alvernia is, about a half hour away. So it's good to be back in my hometown. But, after that, kind of fell in love with the sport, started meeting people and creating friendships and bonds, which to me was the fun part. And, after that, going into high school, wrestling at Pottstown, still involved with, Steel Mat Club. I was a 3-time state medalist. My freshman year, I was about 90 pounds, so that was a tall order. I think my record was 15-10, and I probably had 10 forfeits. They were just throwing me out there to get my hand raised. And then I started getting a little bigger, started growing in my body a little bit, and I ended up being a 3-time state medalist at Pottstown. I got 8th, 7th, and 3rd as a senior at 103, 112, and 119 respectively. We were a AA school back then. After that, again, part of the sport, changing my life, always is I didn't really know much about college. I wasn't focused on college. And, coaches started to reach out to me, and I started to think about it. Some of my teammates from Steel Mat Club, actually I think 3 of them, were already at Ithaca College, so there was a connection there. And I transitioned to go to Ithaca College after high school in upstate New York, where I was coached under led by Marty Nichols, and I was a 3-time All-American, 2-time national champ up there. And now that was kind of my start, my entry into the sport, and that led into my newfound coaching career.
So you mentioned that you're a 3-time medalist in high school. Nothing to be ashamed of, obviously, but you got a couple titles in college. Did your lack of reaching the top of the podium in high school drive you to work harder in college, or motivate you to kind of get at top and win that title?
I don't think so. I think, all the places I got, I think I deserved and I earned. When I got 8th, I think I deserved 8th place. And, one of the things I pride myself on is, I wasn't, the greatest athlete. I was never the strongest guy, the fastest guy, the most agile guy. And, wrestling's a beautiful sport that you can overcompensate for some of your inefficiencies and still be successful. I was never a semifinalist in Pennsylvania ever. And my freshman year of college, I was. And I think the thing I pride myself on is that continual progress. Whether or not, when I went from being a little over 500 to being a state medalist to getting 7th, even if it was 8th to 7th, I wanted to do better. And that's kind of what I pushed myself to. And that was my drive. And then, getting 3rd, and then being a semifinalist at nationals, and then making the finals and winning a close one, 4-2. And even then, I still wanted to progress. And I ended up, majoring the guy 8-0 in the finals my senior year. And to me, that's what was important. just continually getting better. You know, whatever that the trophy was at the end of the day was not what was important. It was, you know, that drive, you know, the journey. It means the world to chase that state title or that national title, and it means everything. But at the same time, it means nothing because it's really, you know, the journey, the pursuit of those goals, and the person you become pursuing those endeavors that, you know, I value and that I've found, you know, pride in.
So, Seth, all this brought you to Alvernia, you know, this whole journey. You talked about the journey. When that Alvernia job came open and they announced when they first announced they were creating a wrestling program, did you know right then and there that you wanted to take the job, or did it, you know, did you have to think about it a little bit, or was it not even on your radar when it came about?
I had to think about it a lot. You know, it's crazy to think about that. You know, when I started, you know, volunteer coaching, you know, I had assignments and you know, working, and originally starting as, you know, just a way for me to work out, essentially, and get back involved with the sport, because unlike basketball or some other sports, it's not one of those they go, hey, buddy, you want to go do a pickup game on the mat? So I wanted to go in. I wanted to get back involved with the sport. And that was kind of the catalyst to getting involved with it. You know, I was blessed, you know, it was my first coaching job or volunteer position at that. But to be under Bill Rasich, you know, who passed away this past year, and, you know, he was kind of the driving force behind me getting involved with coaching, you know, full time and really pursuing it with my whole heart. You know, at the time I was working in finance in the Philadelphia area, just kind of dabbling with coaching, and he pushed me to come in full time and pushed me to go chase that as a career. And that's kind of how it started. And then, you know, my assistant coach at the time, you know, coincidentally, who was Dave Albel, he was been a long-time assistant at Ithaca College, had called me and asked me if I'd be interested in moving back up there. So all these things kind of going together kind of led me to pursue that coaching job. And then I was blessed, you know, coaching at Ithaca under, you know, the guy who molded me into the caliber wrestler I was, and taught me a lot. To be under him and see it from his side was an amazing experience. And then, you know, going down to the University of Maryland in the Big Ten the following year, you know, going under Kerry McCoy, you know, a gentleman who lives his life to the highest degree of integrity that there is, and being under him, you know, two-time Olympian, world silver medalist, you know, I mean, his accolades speak for himself. But so getting that position, you know, under Coach McCoy was, you know, a blessing, and getting there and developing under him was still in the endeavor to be a Division III head coach. That was still my goal. It was something Coach McCoy was aware of and was helping me, you know, develop as a coach under an accomplished, you know, coach, also working with, you know, Coach Sheptock down there as well. And when this position opened up, you know, things don't always happen when you want them to. And I was kind of on the fence about it for a while. You know, it's in my backyard. It's you know, in my new program in the division I love, and the division I was in. And it was a tough decision. You know, I wanted to stay at Maryland a lot longer. I was having a great experience there and learning a lot. And, you know, obviously being in the Big Ten is, you know, kind of the pinnacle of NCAA wrestling right now. And so it was a tremendous experience. And if I could have planned it out, I might have stayed there a couple more years. But when this job opened up, I was very open with Coach McCoy. And part of that development piece, you know, we were able to have, you know, honest conversations about it, about where I want to go with my life. And he supported my pursuits of getting back into Division III, starting a brand new program is exciting as well. I don't think, you know, it's happening more and more, but until the past few years, not many people in this country alive have had the privilege of starting a new NCAA program. And so that was a very exciting piece to me, to be able to build something from nothing and, you know, to give back to the sport that has given me so much in that sense, and was really exciting. And that challenge and chasing that was something that, you know, got me excited and really, you know, motivated me, you know, to get up and get down there and start making things happen for Alvernia University, for the area I grew up in, for, you know, Pennsylvania wrestling and the surrounding area, and just in general to grow the sport. to be able to be at the front of something that will help give kids more opportunities to wrestle, post high school was something that really got me excited. And being able to talk candidly with, Coach McCoy about that, at that time was something that really helped me, pursue that endeavor.
So, Seth, you wrestle at the highest level of Division III, and as you put it, coached at the pinnacle, Division I in the Big Ten. If you can, give us, what's the difference between the two, or isn't there one?
From a wrestling perspective, I don't think there is. People that are serious about wrestling are serious about wrestling. It's not dependent on the division. It depends on the opportunity and what you're looking for in the school and things like that. I think right now there's maybe 3 or 4 Division III individuals that are on the senior circuit and have made the national team. One Greco gentleman, Joe Rao, who I wrestled with, who was at Elmhurst the same years. We actually roomed together at the Olympic Training Center. He's doing great things, a Division III individual. Nazar Kaczynski was, I think, in the finals of the U.S. Open, another, great Division III wrestler. I believe Lefevre might currently be at Nittany Lion Wrestling Club chasing that Olympic dream. So from a wrestling perspective, I don't think there is, much of a difference. Obviously, you have, scholarships at the Division I level and things like that that change the field a little bit. But from a wrestling perspective, I haven't, Division III, I wrestle Division I competition, pretty regularly while at Ithaca. And as a coach, I would like to get there as well and really cross those lines of divisions and compete against each other.
So kind of changing gears here. Give us a little bit of, the work that you've had to put in starting a program from scratch. You're in a pretty unique position, like you talked about, and having this, ability to mold and make this your program and make it so it's a positive impact on anyone that comes in contact with it. Tell us give us some of the day-to-day stuff that you didn't think that you would encounter that you do encounter.
The day-to-day, I guess the unknowns, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's, as you go, you chase new challenges each year. I think, some of the harder things that I didn't think about was, from a recruiting perspective, obviously I have 0 current roster spots taken up, when I took the position. And, so a lot of kids, their questions are, well, who's my practice partner be? Who's my teammate going to be? And answering those questions are obviously, it's a fair question. It's an honest question. And as we develop it and as the dominoes start to fall, which they are now, it's almost like a snowball effect. And, as we gain momentum, but those first couple of kids, selling them on it. And I think that the way you do that and the way I found to do it is just ask a real simple question of, say your wrestling career doesn't pan out, maybe it's an injury, whatever it could be, you don't wrestle. Is this still a school you would want to be at? And, selling that part is I think changes the perspective of why you're picking the school and that it's not strictly about your athletic career, which I think and hope is important. But at the end of the day, your athletic career should enhance your college career, not be your college career. And so falling into that. Aside from that, it's a lot of, the X's and O's, designing a brand new wrestling room, working hand in hand with the athletic director and figuring out, the best way to optimize our space, which is exciting, to be at the precipice of a new program and to be able to design something from scratch of how I envision it is exciting, and there's challenges. I told him the other day, I said, you could give me the whole building. Doesn't mean I wouldn't ask for an addition. But we're finding that happy medium, and I'm really excited about how this wrestling room is going to look at designing a new, competition, man. It's really exciting to, in a way, I feel like, starting a brand new program as opposed to taking a head coaching job at an established program is I have to learn everything in 1 year as opposed to, we already have a mat, we already have a wrestling room, or we already have a locker room, or we already have some guys on the team, or, and all those things that maybe you could, learn, through a couple years and maybe not focus on right away. I kind of have to figure them out all this year. which I was blessed for Alvernia to bring me on the year before and hire me full time to do all these things. So it's not that it's necessarily a tall order, but it's it's something that it's very exciting to me, and it's the reason I took the job. Honestly, is I knew there was going to be challenges. I think as wrestlers, that's what excites us is facing new challenges every day and tackling them. And often when our backs are against the wall is when we perform best. So being able to do that and be here and explain my vision and sell the dream and see how it turns out is going to be really exciting. At the end of the day, I have to do that. I think it's a John F. Kennedy quote where he says, and it might not be verbatim, but do what you can where you are with what you have. And, that's what I'm doing. And that's, where we end up in the future and whether or not the work I'm putting in will turn out is something that we'll find out later. I think it will. And, I think the guys that I'm currently talking to are going to do great things in college and in their college career. The thing that I'm keenly aware of is, I'm blessed to not come into a program with a bad culture that I have to overcome. But at the same time, I don't have a good culture to keep. So I really am putting a premium on the type of individual and the character as opposed to just his talent level.
This whole new program and starting, what are your expectations for your first year? Like, we don't need we're not looking for a win-loss total. What are things you're looking to establish and that you expect to happen in that first year?
I mean, the goal, if you look at, when I talked about my athletic career, it's, kind of in a lot of the reasons, I picked Division III and how I attacked wrestling is really indicative of my coaching style as well. And, when I come in here every day, I'm going to be trying to train these guys and developing these guys to be national champions. I think that's why you come into the room, and that's the goal. And that's what you want. We want champions. But at the end of the day, that's not necessarily what's important, which I alluded to earlier in the conversation. What's important is chasing it and doing it the right way. And, that's what I want, and that's where I want to go. Where the wins and losses are going to, turn out, I can't really speak to that and where they're going to fall. But at the end of the day, and I kind of, relate it to academics a lot of the time where, in wrestling, the work you put in, whether or not you took shortcuts, you tested every week or every match, and everybody who watches knows that you were doing the right thing. Then, whether or not you're pursuing that goal of a national title, the proper way. And whether or not you win it is kind of, it's not as important as a person you become in chasing those endeavors, the values you learn in chasing those endeavors, and the impact you have on the people around you by doing things the right way. And to relate that to academics is, obviously the goal is to, be a 4.0 student. That's what you want to do. But you have to do it morally and ethically the right way. And that's important. If you're so focused on accomplishment and so accomplishment driven, sometimes that incentivizes cheating. And that's the last thing I want. And that's the last thing, piece of a culture that I would want. So it's not the end goal that by any means necessary, the ends justify the means. That's not necessarily what I believe. At the end of the day, whether or not you have a 4.0 isn't going to be important because if you graduate, you're a good person with a good work ethic who learn the material and become a productive member of society. And it's the same thing with wrestling. And, whether or not you win that national title is not as important as that person you became in that conquest. And, that's what I want. And so when I come in, the guys are that's my expectation for them. I'm going to hold them to a high standard. And if they fall short, that's fine. It's not a slight. This is the expectation. This is why we're in this room, and this is what we're chasing.
Seth, so your credentials, they speak for themselves both as an athlete and a coach. You got me fired up. I mean, you're saying all the right things. It's genuine. You sound ready to go. What are some hurdles that you're running across with parents or kids that are maybe apprehensive to go to a startup program per se?
I think, and one of the things that, that's a question that I thought about, before I took the position. And to be honest with you, there's not many hurdles when you're honest with people. And that, I think the type of individual, the type of kid that, will pass up maybe an established program to go to a brand new one is a special kind of kid, and I think takes a unique individual to really tackle that goal of, being the first person to put on an Alvernia wrestling singlet, the first person to, get their hand raised, the first person to be an academic All-American. There's going to be a lot of firsts. I think that the person who wants to, take that task on, that challenge on, is going to be a great person. So, and in regards to parents, it does me no service to be a different individual in the recruiting process, or to not be honest about where we're at, where we stand, the current team, the people that I'm talking to, the wrestling room. It does mean how this school is, what the school is good at. It does me no service to hide some of the facts about it. So I'm an open book. Every individual that I talk to knows that it's not about me. It's not about Alvernia. It's about the kid making the right choice for himself so he can be productive after college, that he can be successful after college. And, I would like to think that I can help individuals maximize their genetic potential to become good husbands and good fathers post-athletic career. But there's also hundreds of other coaches in the NCAA that are in the same business and believe the same thing. So, I've actually given, kids, other coaches' phone numbers, and they're going to those schools because I want them to pick a place that they'll be happy, that they'll be successful. And as long as they continue to wrestle, I'm happy with that. So, the one issue that I have seen, and it's more from my perspective and the recruiting perspective, is, the amount of individuals that you have to recruit for a brand new program is obviously going to be more than an established program with a roster already. And, me as a coach, I will never cut a kid based on talent, and I think that's a beautiful thing about wrestling, is that often you don't see that. And so when, hypothetically, if I were to recruit, say, 40 individuals and, they all are retained on the roster all 4 years, the issue would be recruiting for next year and the year after that, because I would obviously have limited roster spots if I had 40 freshmen that are going to be on campus for 40 years. So playing that game and being honest with parents about, for me, I would like a roster of around 20 because it gives me room to grow, but it gives me an appropriate amount of individuals to compete and chase that national title. So really it's the main issue is determining the appropriate roster size for a brand new program, because I don't want to get too many kids that it hinders my future and the future recruiting. But at the same time, I need a lot of kids.
Hey, real quick, just I know I'm jumping in here, just to give the listeners an idea. What conference will you be competing in when the program does start up?
So we will be in the MAC conference. The wrestling programs that are in the MAC are Wilkes, Lycoming, King, Messiah, and Del Val. I believe I got them all. And I apologize if I didn't, but I believe that's all. So that will be our wrestling conference. Oh, and Stevens is entering, Stevens Institute of Technology is entering our conference next year as well.
Seth, it's nothing like starting up a program and then on top of that having to wrestle the likes of the teams you just named, who a lot of them enjoy a rich wrestling tradition. So it's another unique position you're put in, right?
I mean, absolutely, but that's also what's exciting, to have, storied programs, in our conference that have had national champions, and be able to compete against them is kind of what you want. Because at the end of the day, having a winning record or something like that first semester or anything is not the end goal. The end goal is that national title. So being able to have that high level competition in your backyard is going to be critical to my success, that when we get out to the national tournament or the regional qualifier, hopefully there won't be any surprises. And also having those storied programs, so close to you and somebody you communicate with on a daily basis, like Coach Laudenslager at Wilkes University, being able to utilize him as a resource. Because I think one thing that I can't say it's unique to our sport because I haven't been part of many other sports, but one thing that is great about our sport is, coaches in general across the board, are involved in this business to grow wrestling and make wrestling a better sport. And of course they want to beat you on match day, But outside of that, the better they want you to get better, and they want to get better themselves. And I think that's a great thing about our sport. And some of the coaches, in this conference are the coaches that I've purposely surrounded myself with, like Coach Bill Rasich. He wanted you to be the best team you could possibly be, but he also wanted to be better than you. And that was kind of his goal and his MO. And that more, the difference between mentoring and being a proactive mentor. I said earlier in this interview that, you don't know what you don't know. So having people reach out to you and say, hey, just, want to put this on your radar has been an invaluable resource. And I'm blessed to have, coaches in this conference and, in this country and involved in the NCAA sport of wrestling that are willing to do that for you.
Hey, so before we wrap it up, Seth, I think you touched on it a little bit, but what's your pitch? I mean, what's great about Alvernia? What's great about your program for the right kid? Like, what are you looking for, or what are you selling them on? I don't want to say sell like you're a car salesman, but what does your program have to offer the right kid?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, it's a brand new program, and that's, we're a growing school. We're a young school. We were founded in 1958 as a all-women's school about 60 years ago. So most high schools in Pennsylvania are older than, our college. But to me, that's exciting to be at the front end of something that's really transitioning and growing, adding majors every year, increasing the student population, new buildings, new athletic facilities. It's an exciting time to be a member of Alvernia University. And, I obviously was, recruited here in the interview process back in, August or July. And, that I came on the campus, I saw it, and I think it's a beautiful campus. And when you get on there, it kind of changes your thoughts about it, and not changes, but maybe enhances them. And, for me, I'm selling the truth. I'm in the business of, I want to give kids an opportunity to continue to wrestle, to, advance their educational career, and hopefully do something they otherwise might not have done if it wasn't for the sport of wrestling, because that's what wrestling was to me. And that's what wrestling did for me. And so if I can, help change a kid's life, help them, get to college and chase a career that you need a college degree for, then great. I'm not here to say that college is even for everybody. Some people it's not. Trade schools are equally as respectable. And, to really talk to kids, get to know them, and hopefully for them to get to know me is really my main goal. You kind of retracted the sales pitch point, but for me, having this full year is kind of nice to get to know kids, to let them, see me coach and get to talk to me and get out there and practices more often than if I was running my own, because one of the greatest injustices in the college recruiting process, and it's not a malicious thing, it's not intentional at all, but, a 17, 18-year-old kid is making a college decision, a very important decision. And maybe they don't have the time to get to know the coach on a regular basis. And, obviously the goal is the college, the university, and the academic piece. That is the purpose of going to college. But, your coach should hopefully be a big part of that. And it's important to know that he can help you be successful, that he can help maximize, your genetic potential and accomplish all you want to in this world and through your college career. So for me, it's also equally as important to realize that isn't the guy, So like I said, to have that time to get to know kids and develop those relationships, because I'm a very relationship-oriented person, and I do want to have those relationships with the athletes and the kids that come and wrestle at Alvernia as we, pursue that being a national caliber team. Realistically, we know where we're at. We know that is going to be incredibly difficult in a really, really tall order to be a nationally caliber team the next year. But that doesn't mean that's not what we're shooting for. As far as the majors, I think those pieces, speak for themselves. You can go on websites like most colleges and look at the majors and things that the school has to offer. A lot of our traditionally strong majors are things like nursing. That's one of our better majors, has been, throughout the history of the school. And, So, and the majors, we have business majors, a criminal justice. A good thing that I think is unique about our campus is we do have the Reading Police Academy on campus, which is unique. And so your spring semester, senior year, you can go to the police academy, for instance, and earn 15 credits and graduate from a police academy. And you don't have to travel for that. It's right on campus. So that's just an example of some of the unique options that are at Alvernia University that they offer. And as we grow and hopefully, develop into a premier university in the state of Pennsylvania. And, as we grow, and I hope wrestling and the wrestlers will be an integral part of that.
Well, Seth, we can't thank you enough for coming on. I mean, you just, I think Rob said it, like you had him pumped up, likewise, you're passionate, and it just comes out in everything you say and how you conduct yourself. And, I've known you since you competed at Pottstown, right? And, you have always been passionate and just been you. And that's a credit to, I just think that the people that have been around you and that have influenced your career and who you've become, and you're still one of the most welcoming people. We connected this earlier this year, and that's what led us to this. And for anyone listening out there, you want to meet one of the most genuine guys around. It's in the sport for the right reasons. If you didn't listen to what he said for the last 20 some minutes, maybe listen to this. He's in it for the right reasons, and he will make you not just a better wrestler, but a better person. And I stand by those comments. Because I feel strongly about them. So, Seth, anything we could ever do at PA Power, you just let us know, and we're more than happy to help. Just because you're doing things the right way, and I know I'm excited to see where you take this program to the heights that you take it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Joe, and I really appreciate you having me on here. As you know, and as I know about you, we love talking wrestling. I'm trying to honestly give back to the sport that unquestionably, and the people that know me and have known me for a long time has changed my life in so many ways. And to be blessed to have this opportunity, not only to give back and hopefully, give to other people what this sport has given to me it's a blessing. And, the interesting thing about this sport is, and I use this sport as a vehicle to get to college. I use this sport as a vehicle to understand the importance of academics and hard work. And it pushed me to be, valedictorian in high school and graduate in the top 10% of my class at Ithaca College. And without wrestling, I don't think any of that would have happened. And without the coaches and the mentors I had, I don't think anything like that would have happened. So I'm aware of what this sport has meant to me and the people who have molded me, whether it was, my coach at high school and John Armato, who's been coaching there for, he coached my parents, and whether it was Marty Nichols at Ithaca and Dave Auble to Kerry McCoy and, Bill Rasich, especially as a coach. And, to be able to be not only doing that, but in my backyard and talking to the coaches that, I've known for a while is amazing. And if I can help kids continue their athletic career, and hopefully, as I think and a lot of the coaches who watch me, develop, I enjoy wrestling, and I had fun when I wrestled, and hopefully that'll be the identity of Alvernia as well.
All right, folks, that will wrap it up for another week here in the open room with Rob and Joe. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, visit PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. Follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle. Give us a thumbs up on Facebook, and check us out on Instagram. Don't forget, fans, you can subscribe to the PA Power Podcast on iTunes and listen to all 3 shows on Spotify. If you want to send any questions or suggestions for the show, email us at collegetalk@PAPowerWrestling.com. Thanks, and have a great weekend. Again, take care.